Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 3 of Mad Dialogue with me, Michelle.
And me, Skyla.
I'm just going to apologize now because I am coming to the end of a cold. So, yeah, I know I sound all bunged up. And for those that were born in my era, all I keep going through my head is tunes from the Tunes advert. So, yeah. So I'm sorry for how I sound. And let's just continue. So, Skyla, you picked the subject this week. So what are we talking about?
So today, guys, we're talking about interracial relationships.
And on that note, I think you should start.
What
do you want to say about interracial relationships, Skyla?
So basically, why are you making me lead? So basically, I just wanted to talk, bugging through. But basically, there's just, I feel like a lot of interracial relationships is normalized now. Obviously there was a time when it was foreign to people, and
there was a time when it was actually illegal. I know for sure in the States it was illegal at one point.
So it's still, it was only up until, I'd say, still quite recent, because it was, when you were growing up and there
was like a stigma.
Yeah, so it's still, very recent that there was a stigma on interracial relationships. But I just feel like even getting past that now and it being, an open thing and no one looks at it, people still look at it some way, what I mean, like in general. But I feel like there's still so many things that people don't talk about actually being in an interracial relationship. And
like what?
You have cultural differences for one, which is, it's never a bad thing. You learn from people.
Yeah.
And also just you're always going to be raised differently to people. But I feel like I have realized a lot more that being with someone who's not the same race as you, I feel like they're raised a lot differently. Whereas I could talk to another person that's been raised by a black mother and they'll have a lot of the same stories as me and have, similarities in how they're raised. Whereas, talking to my white boyfriend and I'll be like, oh, so you never had this growing up and stuff like that. Just more even for me, he'll ask questions sometimes that are so out of pocket, because there's this stereotype that black parents beat their children. Yeah.
Okay, let me just clear something up there. Now, back in when I was growing up, that was a thing. It was very much, you did something wrong, you would get a beating. I'm just being for real here. And to a certain degree, especially your older two siblings, with me, it's you use what you learn, whether it's right or wrong. And this is where generational curses and breaking them comes in. But like I said, growing up, that was very much part of my routine. If I messed up, I'd get a beating. Whereas with you guys, you mess up, I just talk to you. When you was younger, you might have got a punishment.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying there. But when you say cultural differences in that respect, but don't you feel that there's some other races, they deal with their children the same way, irrespective?
Most times still the interracial couples I'll see, whether it will be, a black person with a white person or an Asian person with a white person and so on and so forth. Obviously as well, you'll see Asian people with black people and whatever.
But that wasn't that wasn't so much of a thing back in the day. That's been more recent. And don't get me wrong, I love it. I love it all in the respects of, me personally, I don't really deal with the color of somebody's skin as much as I deal with their energy. Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, if you're looking at somebody, you're attracted to them, but I tend to be more attracted to somebody for physical attributes and not necessarily because of the race that they are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But back to the thing, because basically, I got into a conversation with him and it was about, growing up and the punishments we'd receive and stuff like that. And, talking on how it was for our siblings, considering, I've got siblings a lot older than me. And I got the question, would you ever beat our children? And I don't know if that's solely because, I'm a black female and I was raised by a black woman, or if it was just a question based on what I was saying about you. But considering I did say, as you said there, that with me Ernie and Neo, it was me and Ernie especially, it was a different story. But I did take that question more, like, as a black female, that's why you're asking me. I had to say, I said no, like, I'm not just gonna beat our kids. Like, I will punish them however I deem fit in certain situations, but I'm not gonna go into parenting and have this thing like, yeah, I'm gonna beat my children.
But you see, and I feel when you're, sorry to cut you off, but like when there's a big difference between smacking your child on the hand or on the bum because they're about to do something that could very well jeopardize their life span, right? As opposed to just beating your child because you're angry at life and you're taking it out on your child. There's a difference, you know what I mean? There's and I think that's the thing as well. When somebody, because honestly, I remember your dad would say certain things to me, and I would be like, a person's perception of another race and they've never been around them is kind of crazy. Yeah. Some of the things that they would think. For
real, especially going off of the fact, because I asked and I said, well, did you ever get like smacked growing up, like smacked on the bum? Like, what were the punishments you received? And he said straight up, like, no, his parents never put hands on him ever. Like maybe like a little slap on the hand, maybe once in a while. But even then, he doesn't really remember getting that. So I said, considering I basically grew up the exact same.
Right.
Yeah, I'm being asked. It's kind of a thing as well, because I'm not in the slightest trying to say, anyone's racist. Like, of course, I know my boyfriend's not racist, but it's also the stereotypical, the prejudice that people have, and they don't even realize that it's microaggression when you're asking me these certain questions. You don't, it's not a thought that goes through people's heads. They don't link it to the fact, which just proves again that they're not trying to be racist, but it also, to a certain degree.
That's my thing. Like, if they haven't. How are people supposed to know that something is offensive or wrong? And